You should install one of those. Have you ever seen those people who install those like tunnel systems on their walls and through?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, what we did, like we started to try to build one of those out of cardboard because I had seen like a Facebook reel or something and somebody had constructed this like really awesome looking thing out of cardboard, and I was like, oh yeah, and we had all
cardboard.
these boxes. Yeah, and I just started to duct tape shit together. And it didn't, the cats didn't like it. Like, it sucked. It was falling apart.
Welcome to Backtracking, the show where three old friends
Welcome to Backtracking, the show where three old friends take a second listen to classic bands' influential albums, track by track. I am J. William Hall.
And I'm Dan Fiden. We'll be taking this journey together, providing context, both personal and historical, on some legendary bands. For our third season, we've selected 15 of our favorite albums that we think deserve a good old-fashioned backtrack.
Backtracking is the greatest podcast. Ralph and JW and Dan make this podcast every week. Backtracking is the greatest podcast. Get ready for podcast action.
J. William Hall, we are back once again.
Yes.
How are you?
I am well. I am, just feeling the effects of the long days in the coal mines. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah. So but that you don't work in a literal coal mine. You're referring
Right.
to your employer, or are you referring to the deep backtracking that you've done of this album?
The labor was intense.
Yeah.
It was relentless.
Yeah,
I lost track of day and night.
Yeah.
There was some danger involved.
yeah,
It was back-breaking work.
yeah,
It was ear-breaking work.
yeah,
But I backtracked the hell
yeah.
out of this album.
Yeah.
Gang of Youths, Angel in Real Time,
Yeah.
from 2022. This was a Dan Fiden pick.
It was.
And it was by far the most recent album of
Yeah.
the 15 that we picked.
By far. Yeah. So, Gang of Youth. So this pick was it was the most complicated pick for me. And I'm going to talk to you about why it was incredibly complicated. And I'm going to go through all of that stuff. However, before that, we need to talk about the housekeeping required for making a podcast that millions and millions of people love every single week. Okay? Number one, we released some episodes out of order. All right? I mean, not terribly out of order. It isn't as though they didn't make sense. However, at the end of what was it? The Ozzy episode, I think we said that we were going to do Felt next or something. The long and short of it is we ended up sticking the U2 album in an unexpected place in the schedule so that we could accommodate the many interviews that we've been doing this season, including the great interviews that you've heard already. There are going to be more coming up, but we're having to do a little bit of schedule shuffling to get through that. So if you noticed it, we apologize. That is all I have to say about it, J. William.
Hey, it's our bad. We are human beings here.
Yeah.
We are not AI. We cannot perfectly schedule everything
That's right.
A tenth of a second. You
I
know
know.
what I'm talking about? It takes
I know.
time. It takes effort. It takes all parties coming to the table together
Yeah,
to
that's right.
arrive at a time and a place, and sometimes it's just impossible, people.
Yeah, that's right. But anyway, that's really all of the housekeeping that we need to do for this week. So I want to get into Gang of Youths and Angel in Real Time. But
Yeah.
before we even get to the band, before we even get to any of it, I want to talk a little bit about these really complicated feelings that I have about this album overall.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, do it.
And I think there's quite a bit here that we need to dig into. Now, as you guys are aware, we are a couple of Gen Xers, okay?
That's right. You can
Our
probably
perspectives.
tell.
Yeah, you can
just
tell.
listen to us for you know how old we are.
And we've
Just say
said it before. We've talked about it. It's pretty obvious. But I think that
we're trying to hide. We're not trying to hide our age.
Yeah. So the first thing that was complicated about this pick for me is, as you said, it's a pretty new album. This album only came out a couple of years ago in 2022.
Yeah.
And so just including it in like a list of albums that I say are underrated classics, obviously means that you have to ask the question, can something be an underrated classic after 3 years, right?
Yeah. But I mean, I think I assumed you're saying this flew under the radar. It should have had more attention.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm saying, and that's exactly why I picked this album. I think when I listen to this album, I think it could be a huge album and a huge band. But all right, so I also think not only is the album pretty new, but I'm old. I can't tell. There was a period in my life, right? And Jay William, you knew me well in those days, and I think you probably felt the same. If I liked a band, I had a really good sense of whether they were hip or not. You know what I mean? Or whether they were kind of lame in ways that were just about how they were perceived by the popular culture or by different subcultures. But like I would know kind of how a band landed in that range, right? For Bush was like incredibly uncool at that time within
even
kind
though
of
they
most
were
music communities.
Yeah, they were massively popular, but they were uncool.
But they were uncool, But Dinosaur Jr. was was pretty cool across a lot of different subculture. I'm just picking them as an example, right? But I just somehow intuitively understood that stuff. And I have zero understanding of that now. So when I picked this album, I was kind of like, is this a super dorky album? Am I picking basically Christina Aguilera? Or I don't know. I don't even know what to compare it to. But do you know what I mean?
What would be like an 80s pop band that would be sort of embarrassing?
It would be like saying this Wham album, I think, is one of the most, and acting is maybe not Wham. I don't know.
I know what you're saying, though.
But you know what I'm saying?
Well,
I to this day, I don't have any real sense of where this band fits on the hip meter at all.
Honestly, nor do I. I mean, I had heard of this band and in fact had heard of them enough or had seen them on a year-end top 10 list or something.
Yeah.
Enough times that I was like, oh, I should check that album out because I put it on my check it out playlist.
Yeah.
And but when the times that songs would come up on it, I'd be a little
yeah,
honestly.
Yeah.
And so when you picked it, I was kind of like, all right, I'm going to revisit this and kind of dig into it. So this is my first exposure to Gang of Youths. They had a bit of a career prior to this album.
Yeah.
This is their third.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait a second though. I'm not even through all of my conflicted feelings about it.
I'm sorry.
I have an incredibly long list. I'm sorry, but I've got to go through it. I feel like
we will eventually get to the band
get to the band, but this is really, I feel like all of my kind of feelings about this album really are filtered through this very conflicted feeling I have just about the fact of the band.
Let me ask you this though. Why is it important to you that something be perceived as cool or not cool?
I mean, J. William Hall, how long have you known me?
I'm trying to get you to think about this.
I don't know why. I don't I don't
Well,
know, but that is one deep question that this album is not going to get into for me. But like,
no, but
all right,
I acknowledge that there was a time in my life where I felt very in tune with what was hip, what was happening,
Yeah.
what was, cool, what was sort of like, like. I don't know if that cycle was more apparent to everybody during that era, or if that was just like a time of your life where you're paying attention to that stuff, and then you lose sight of it.
I also think it's like, when in our generation, kind of the musical sub culture that you chose to be a part of was more definitional for the rest of your identity than I think that is now for kids, just generally.
For sure.
Sure. And so I think we were all of it was, it was much more wrapped up, or at least for people who were into music at all, like your choice in music was like really wrapped up in kind of how you wanted to be perceived and what you thought was cool. And
it was a significant part of your identity.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like for kids now, they like, this is what I'm talking about, the streaming era. They come up in this world where all the music is free, and you just go and pick and go down whatever rabbit holes, and people tell you, oh, check out, bands like Fleetwood Mac and like, I don't even Nirvana or, I mean, 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, like it doesn't matter, it's all out there as accessible as anything. And so it's like, in a way, I think that's really good, my kids don't have a real like militant, like I like this type of music specifically, and I was very like that
but see, I think that like part of what's great about really focusing in is then you get into like backtracking, you get into thinking about like all of a band's albums, not just their 3 songs that everybody knows, and you'll think about how they progress over time, then you'll think about who influenced them, and then it's like, oh, the guitarist left and founded this band, and you like end up on these amazing
stories.
Yeah. It's all right. So anyway, all right. So the second really conflicted thing just about the band and album is I think, absolutely big music. We were talking about it in the U2 episode.
Yes. I think it's big, interesting. Music. Yeah, that this comes on the heels of that EP. Because it I would say it sort of checks a lot of the same boxes.
Yeah, it's very big. And I would say that one concern that I have is big albums don't tend to age well, I don't think. That bigness, I think, frequently seems kind of dated pretty quickly because it can be so authoritative or something. I don't know. This may not be true, but I have this feeling. And I was worried about that. And
do you have other examples? Can you think of other?
So
examples?
The band that I as soon as I started really listening to this band, that is more than anything else connected in all of the stuff that I've talked about here is Counting Crows, right? Counting Crows, there's something about them that is like uncool and like overly dramatic and emotional, or like too honest and earnest. But
and then another step down that road would be like Creed.
Like no, I think that's a big step.
Well, okay, but it gets to that like where it just feels like all artifice somehow.
Yeah,
like and apologies to anyone who's into that band, because there's probably like a legion of young Creed fans now.
I think like Billy Joel is this way in a certain way. There's like a real earnestness and like performance of the earnestness that when it misses huge. Like it is terrible.
It feels fake.
Yeah, it's just terrible. But somehow or another, as I got older, I love Counting Crows now. But I still have that like thing. Like I basically rediscovered Counting Crows, which is a band that was like out when I was, they were kind of big when I was in college.
Yeah.
but I kind of hated him then and never really dug into him at all. And then much later, I kind of rediscovered them and really love that band now. But
that's because you're living in tropical locales. You know what I mean? That's like a Jimmy Buffett kind of.
It could be. But like, no, but I think that it's like, I don't know. There's something about the actual seeing the physical performance also that I think makes just the repeated listening. Like, Adam Duritz is an amazing songwriter. He is an amazing songwriter. And I think he's an amazing lyricist.
Here's something to posit.
Okay.
Is it so you say you saw them live?
Who?
Counting Crows.
No, I've never seen him live.
Oh, you haven't seen him live. Okay.
No.
I wonder if these big emotions, you know, because first of all, big emotions are inherently embarrassing.
Yes, I think that's right.
So I do think that there's something about witnessing somebody's big emotions that's a little bit like cringy or it makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah, especially for our generation, I think.
Maybe so, because I think like Gen Xers, like, you know, no big deal.
Yeah.
You know, everything's cool. Like,
don't care. Like,
I don't care.
Not caring
cool.
about anything.
It's not cool to care. It's not cool to care about anything. You know, and so you saw these bands, you know, like Bono definitely, I mean, he's a huge touchstone for this episode. Like, you know, he wore his emotions on his sleeve, you know, for the all the masses, and I think that triggered people's cringe, you know, and then it became like, I hate that band, you know. So like, if you didn't like that particular singer's style in some way of delivery or whatever, then you were like, ugh, you know. Whereas others, you're like, I'm a true believer, you know.
But all right. So there's all these things kind of around the superficialness of the band. All right, and then I have this other thing that you and I were talking about briefly, which is I realized after I made my list that I included three concept albums total. By the way, 3 of my 5 were concept albums. But 2 of those concept albums...
You like a big statement. You like a grand statement.
Yeah, I guess so. But 2 of them are about people dealing with the death of their father, which, like, I was like, whoa, I didn't even... I knew that about the albums, but when I made my list, I didn't kind of put together that that's what I'd landed on. And, I, you know, as you know, J. William Hall, we're in our 50s. We're going through aging parents.
Right.
My father's not in good health. I've had a very complicated relationship with my father for my, you know, entire adult life. Sure. And so like all of this stuff is like really hitting. And then my wife's mom just passed away suddenly a few weeks ago, and I'm dealing with that right now. So being in the middle of this, I almost feel complicated about it, because it's like, wow, are these things hitting on just the moment in my life when I'm really kind of going through that stuff, and that's why they're so kind of meaningful. These albums I think are so genius to me right now, is it's just like happens to be where I am.
I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. Your subconscious is guiding you, you know?
Yeah. But I mean, there's no way to get around that in this album. The album is about one thing told a bunch of different ways, and it's that story, and it is very raw, and it is not particularly like, you know, shrouded in metaphor. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is a fucking diary of him going through this stuff. And so it, you know, I don't know. This could be a very special episode. I'm not going to say that I'm going to cry, but I may well. So back in the 80s, they would prepend it with remember those, like, a very special episode.
Right.
And then it was like, you know.
This is a very special episode of Backtracking.
It was like a very special episode of Golden Girls, and like one of them, you know, I don't know. Yeah. All right. So anyway, this could be a very special episode of Backtracking. All right. So third thing that I really wrestle with, it's practically a dance album. Okay?
In parts, yeah. There's a lot of.
It is very dancey and groovy, and this is not at all a style of music that I like at all. Like at all. I do not like it. And the only thing like I remember listening to an album in a pre-release party, actually at Capitol Records, and it was the release of Kid A by Radiohead.
Wow.
Right? And I remember thinking like, holy shit, this is an incredible departure for the band. And also thinking, I'm worried because I love Radiohead, but I'm not sure if I like this. And it took me a while to really kind of wrap my head around the record.
Yeah.
But in some ways, it's like reminiscent of kind of that moment in a band's trajectory, or that moment of like when Paul Simon did Graceland, which I always have thought is a terrible record, because it was
What do you mean? You think Graceland is a terrible record?
I do. I just don't like the whole like, you
didn't like the adoption of world music.
Yeah,
and,
no, I
like,
just always
writing
found
pop
that to
songs
be
out of it.
ridiculous when somebody does that. But this is very much a Graceland type record, right? Like there's a bunch of this.
Oh, I mean, maybe not quite that. It's not that drastic of a.
Yeah.
And in Paul Simon's defense,
I'm glad somebody's going to defend Paul Simon.
he was interested in and was already dabbling in what we would call world music sort of styles and rhythms and whatever earlier in his career.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel like it kicked off this whole era of pop stars taking themselves very seriously and putting on some kind of like African garb and then going off and making a record. Like Sting, I feel like did it. You know what I mean? I just feel like everybody was doing it.
Sting
it was
did
very
something-
much like Peter Gabriel's world of music and dance.
No, you're right. This was like that like 84 to 88 kind of era. Sting did like rainforests, like he was over in Central America or something. Yeah, but
I know. Well, we basically deployed like the 5 biggest pop stars to each continent and said, make a
Save
Justice
them.
League.
Yeah. I think like there were a lot of good intentions in what these people were trying to do, but I agree with you because that's kind of when I sort of jumped off board of Sting. So that's why like the Soul Cages, I kind of missed it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so there is that thing. And I, in particular, as I said, I don't like Graceland. I'm like worried that somehow I'm picking the Graceland of this generation or something.
No,
but it's just another like worry that I have about the album before we even talk about it. And then the last one is, and we've talked about it a lot, it is a deep and earnest album. It is extremely deep and earnest, and I think a fairly spiritual album. And
sure.
None of these things are things that like, traditionally I really go in for. You know what I mean? I would say earnest probably, yes, I do. But like spiritual, I don't think ever, at least in any kind of obvious way. And this is obviously a spiritual and potentially like religious album,
Well, I know in the past you and I have shared we've shared a like for the Innocence Mission, for example.
Yeah, that's true.
Who were like, quite Christian in how some of their lyrics and everything were. So, I don't think that
Low was always well known to be a Christian band.
Yeah,
Sufjan Stevens.
Yeah, exactly. Like there are, artists who are more like indie type of artists who also happen to be Christian and sometimes sing about that or whatever, that have broken more into mainstream indie, I guess you would call it.
Yeah, but
or there have been pop stars, Amy Grant
No, sure, for sure. But I would say that Amy Grant never had any kind of credibility, like any cool credibility. She was popular, but there weren't a lot of people around the college radio station being like, "Oh, have you checked out this new Amy Grant track?"
Yeah. She was not like a college rock darling, But I mean, she appealed to so many people.
She did. But like, I think the thing for me, and these are my hang-ups about the album. I'm just trying to get out there.
So
but
you're worried, that this is a little...
To Gen X ears, to Gen X aesthetic, I think that is that's tough to get away with and tough to kind of get around how earnest and spiritual it is. It's like, we're going to talk about the band having met in this big kind of church called Hillsong. And it feels like that. It feels like that kind of music, which, Father John Misty is more Gen X in the aesthetic because there's just never a kind of earnest sentiment without a sarcastic remark afterwards. You know what I mean? And this is not that. You know what I mean? This is much more like not unafraid to like hit the real,
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely very earnest. I think there are sort of attempts here and there to be like slightly self-deprecating or, he swears a lot.
Yeah,
that was going to be one of my general observations, which that makes me sound like some old, like, I don't like all the swearing, but like, I just noted it because some of it feels forced, where it's like,
oh, okay.
You don't have to say asshole right there. You don't have to say shit right there. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it feels like that was intentional, but was it intentional because that's the way he talks, or was it intentional because he was trying to offset the earnestness and the seriousness of it with, like, some more, I swear it,
Okay.
I mean, but I'm not judging it or saying it was one way or the other. It's just that.
Listen, we're backtracking it. We're going to get into it. But that is an element of it, right? Like, there's no doubt about that. And so I don't know. There is this. The last thing is like the earnestness of it is. There's a lot about this record that I would say. Like my initial gut reaction to was like to recoil a little bit. And I just being totally honest, and I'm not sure. There was something about it that kept me listening. And then I feel like at some point the album opened up to me, but I still don't really know. Like, I still worry it's just a dorky album that opened up to me. You know what I mean? But I just wanted to put it all out there.
Yeah.
Listeners, tell me where I've landed here.
Listen,
but I'm saying that up front.
I did not approach my 5 albums this year as these are my 5 all-time favorite albums, or these are the 5 best albums of all time. It was just like 5 kind of albums that I think have been kind of overlooked or underrated or whatever.
Yeah.
So, this is just an album for you. So, with a clear conscience, we move forth into this Gang of Youths album because, as I said, I had added it to my Check It Out playlist, and then when every now, like, what I basically do is I listen to that, and when something disagrees with my ears, I'll look at who's that, and then I might remove it from the playlist.
Yeah.
And I did that to a couple of songs from this album, and I don't know which ones they were because nothing stuck enough, I mean, because I'm listening to these random with like 3,000 other songs. So this was my first true opportunity to dig into the album.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to report, as with many previous Backtracking album assignments, my first listen was rough. My second listen was not much better. And then like third listen and then fourth listen, and maybe by that time I'm starting to kind of research online and look at the band's story and read some interviews and look at some videos, and like things start to kind of add up, so that by the time I get to talking about the album, I'm like, I actually kind of like this album,
Yeah.
And so we'll talk about it.
All right, excellent. All right, so just to get it out there up front, I listened to the version that's on Apple Music, very straightforward. It was released 25th of February, 2022 on Sony. The album is just over an hour. It's an hour and 7 minutes. So this is not a short little album.
Right. Long album.
It's a long album.
This is going to mess up your strategy if you're trying to record this on a blank 90-minute cassette. This is going to mess up your strategy right here.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You're going to have to find like the B-sides, I know there were some singles released for, fill it out with that.
So, all right. So I want to go through the history of the band a little bit, but why don't we just start off with kind of the key personnel on this album? It is really the band is singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist. He's not really the band, but like he's the main dude. David Laupepe. Now the pronunciation may not be great there. Probably is not. I've looked online. And I've
You're
actually
trying your best.
I've seen multiple different pronunciations suggested, so I'm just gonna go for it. Then we've got on this record Tom Hobson.
Is it Hobson or Hobden?
Hobden. Sorry, Hobden. Danny Borzastowski. Can you get through?
Is it
through
Danny
that
or
one?
Don? Is it
Donnie? Donnie. Sorry, Donnie. Donnie.
It's Donnie Borstowski.
Yeah.
Borstowski, turn in your badge and revolver. You're off the force.
All right, so he's on drums, piano, keyboards. Young Kim, guitar, keys, piano, and Max Dunn on bass, banjo, piano. But the band was founded by, essentially this lineup, except with a guy named Joji Milani, who was the guitar player up through before this album. And they all met while they were in high school, and they became just like really good kind of high school friends, but they met through this church called...
in Sydney, Australia.
In Sydney, Australia, this church called Hillsong. Now, Hillsong, I believe, started in the U.S., and it's a big kind of new charismatic evangelical church, Christian church. Super notable because a lot of Justin Timberlake type people went there at various points. And there's also a document. I don't remember. I watched the documentary, but I don't remember the details. But there was some big kind of drama around this church. Some brouhaha.
I read a little bit about it. It was kind of wild. There was some prominent person in the church. This is back in like 2008, 2000, somewhere in that era, who pretended that he had cancer, I guess.
Okay.
And but he, I guess, did not, and he raised all this money. People were donating, and somehow that all blew up, and he blamed it on he needed the money for a pornography addiction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there were multi levels to the scandal that sort of, I don't know if that's still a cloud over this. I didn't really know anything about this church or this group until, looking into this.
It's kind of, what we were saying up at the top of the episode, this kind of spiritual, now, when you watch the documentary, it reflects that. It's the kind of, it's like,
let me ask
they dress is
this a rock and roll church? Oh,
they dress like magicians in Las Vegas, kind of, the preachers.
Okay.
So they have this kind of Chris Angel style look, and they all sing and play guitar, and you know what I mean?
Well, so I went to kind of a long story, but friends of ours, my wife and I, the husband was being honored for something at the church where his family goes, and they invited us, and so we were like, let's go and support him. So it turned out it was a rock and roll church. Have you ever been to one of these?
No, I haven't.
This is what I'm picturing, and I don't know if this is correct or not, because it was just kind of not like a mega church. It was just kind of like a
regular church,
150, 200 people in the audience, but we walk into the little room where they're going to do the service, and there's a stage set up, and they've got like band equipment, like rock band equipment ready to go. Yeah. And so a band comes out and puts on basically like a 20 or 30 minute concert. Yeah. And I mean, the glass had the clear plexiglass like out in front of it, and like there was like 7 or 8 of them, and they were trading off vocals, and it was like slick. It sounded great in that room. And I mean, I was just kind of like, whoa, like, and obviously like the songs they're singing are, Christian
songs,
kind of songs, but it's in the style of, and convincingly sounds like contemporary, like pop rock music. Like the musicians were ace, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, my impression is it's like that, except mega, like big,
Okay. So Hillsong's like a biggie.
Yeah. Yeah. And so anyway, the church, I had heard of the church before I heard of the band. So anyway, when I read that, I was like, oh God, this is like, you can kind of feel that in the aesthetic a little bit. But anyway,
well, that's
band,
definitely a strand of DNA in the band's sound. Yeah.
Yeah. So the band start, and they, pretty quickly kind of gain steam in Australia, and they make an album called The Positions. I don't want to backtrack this album, but did you happen to listen to it at all?
I listened to it once, and I watched some music videos from the first 2 albums just to get a sense of, kind of where they started from.
Yeah. Yeah. But a very, very different sounding album. I mean, much more like, I think the kind of, bands like The National or like, Interpol or something like that. They were, The Strokes, kind of more of a rock band. Yeah.
Post-punk rock, hard rock.
Aughts, kind of early, like late aughts, kind of. But there, and I think that album is good. I actually like it quite a bit, but it's a you would not expect the band that recorded that album to wind up with Angel in Real Time. And then, so they kept up steam. And then they eventually made their second record, Go Farther in Lightness. And that was like a bit of a breakthrough for them everywhere but in the US, it seems like. But while that was happening, David LaPepe, the songwriter and singer, is going through all kinds of crazy shit. So he marries this woman who's got like very serious cancer and is in various serious cancer, or starts dating her or something, but like in treatment with her. He is like dealing with like drug and alcohol issues during this time. Ends up, breaking up with the woman, that first woman. There's like a suicide attempt. And so there's a lot of shit going on, and and Go Farther in Lightness. All of these albums are pretty earnest and raw in the same way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's who he is as a singer. He is, you can hear Bono. Yeah. You can hear Matt Berringer from The National. You can hear Nick Cave at times. He's a big, emotive, powerful singer, powerful voice. And after watching videos of them live, powerful stage presence. But, when the band started, he was on like rhythm guitar, I think, and their original guitarist was playing the lead stuff.
Yeah.
But it was a more traditional, like, 2 guitars, bass, drums, and keyboard. They always had the keyboard player. So
yeah, I mean, I think if it's very much like those earlier records. The first record is, aesthetically, I think pretty easy to identify. The second record gets much bigger in drama and more Springsteen. All of a sudden, there's a little bit more, like the drama goes up to another level, kind of. The epicness does, but there's no electronics or anything, and it's still very much kind of a rock album. But there are very kind of Springsteen elements.
And so that second album especially is like massive. Like in Australia, like they are #1 group in parts of Europe. It sounds like, but in the U.S. they seem like they've only risen because this third album is the first one that got on my radar, and I think that's just by virtue of being on some end of year best of lists.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't think they have had a breakthrough moment in the U.S. quite yet.
Yeah. Yeah, but those albums are, they demonstrate, the progression demonstrates an increasingly like a high drama, high ambition band that is like, kind of growing in ambition and scale in very rapid time frame, from album to album. And they started off pretty ambitious for like a rock band. You know what I mean? So it's like, they're like definitely, in a way it's like Radiohead. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you would never have guessed that the Bends came from the band that recorded Pablo Honey. Same thing with OK Computer, definitely with Kid A and Amnesiac. You know what I mean? There was like this, it just was
There's a
like,
progression.
whoa, really wild progression.
Yeah. And knowing, about those first two albums and sort of more of the space they were coming from, like, this is a big progression. This is definitely like this third album that we're going to cover, with the introduction of the electronics, introduction of a violin player.
Yeah.
The exit of the original lead guitar player.
Yep.
All of those things kind of influence the sound, and it's a very different kind of approach.
Yeah, and they relocated from Australia to London, and so there's a lot of that kind of being new in London that you find in this record as well. But yeah, the longtime guitarist left amicably apparently, but like just decided to leave, and they brought in this guy from Noah. What was it? Noah and the Whale.
Noah and the Whale.
Yeah. Who has a kind of orchestration background. And so, but yeah, it leads you to this album, which has just once again, a very, very different sound, I think, overall. So J. William Hall, should we talk about the producer of the album?
Yes. And I want you to take the lead because I got mixed. Like, it seemed like the band produced a lot of the album themselves.
The band produced the album almost entirely on their own. They did have some help in certain of the studio locations, apparently. And the big one was someone named Peter Katis, Katis. Probably saying the name wrong. But he's worked with bands, and when you read the list of bands, you're like, oh, yeah, okay, makes perfect sense. Death Cab for Cutie, The Head and the Heart, The National, Interpol, and Jonesy from one of my favorite bands, Sigur Rós. So, there is a certain kind of consistent epicness across that group, different styles, obviously.
Those are arena level kind of groups.
Ambition, yeah. So I thought that production was really interesting, but mostly this album was done by the band, which I really thought was kind of cool because it is incredibly,
it's produced.
Yeah.
There was a lot of production involved.
So, and then the only other thing that I wanted to mention, which I thought was really interesting, and I didn't even know this until backtracking, Adam Duritz from the Counting Crows sings background vocals on 2 songs on this record.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And apparently he's like, this is his favorite band right now. Gang of Youth is his favorite band, and he said a bunch of stuff publicly, and he's going to do some singing on their next album.
That tracks, because I think that
totally
you can hear that emotion, that Counting Crows kind of emotive energy in Gang of Youths.
Yeah. And then the famous F1 driver, Daniel Ricciardo, who's not only mentioned in the lyrics in one song in this band, but he also played drums on a track, percussion on a track. Yeah. So he must be friends with the band. And then there's like a lot of these Polynesian samples, and I just wanted to kind of give credit here or call it out. There was somebody named David Fanshawe or something, who I think is like a British collector of like, kind of folk music from around the world. And there are people there's a really famous one in the US that did this, and all the recordings are kind of part of the Library of Congress. Mm-hmm. Apparently this is kind of the same thing. And this person recorded all across kind of the South Pacific and Polynesia. And so I think a bunch of these are from that.
This
collection.
is like the post World War II era, I think, is when he was kind of making the rounds and making these recordings of native, I think speakers and musicians and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So you hear a bunch of that on the album at all. So I want to just now pause because we're at our overall impression section. I've said so much already, but J. William Hall, this is your kind of like first go round with this band, and this is quite an album to sink your teeth into.
Yeah, I think that, my initial impression was a bit of a turnoff just based on probably that like overly overtuned Gen X, earnestness. Now, the thing is I'm coming from a heavy U2 background, early U2.
Yeah, which I didn't really know until we did it this year.
Well, it's interesting because I see some parallels in the stories of the bands, because the members of U2, 3/4 of them were involved in this Christian offshoot group, and the music stuff was kind of happening simultaneous with that, and so there was influence there, and the Hillsong DNA, I can definitely hear. And having had my one experience at the rock and roll church, I'm like, all right, I kind of get it, how, they use contemporary music as a mode of connecting with a younger audience, and, so I was getting those vibes and they made me uncomfortable. And so I was a little like, but then like, backtracking, digging into the album further, like I definitely am impressed with the depth of just how deep they go, like the whole album, being influenced by and mostly about this one event, and it's impressive. Like, is it too much? Probably. Is it like, overly earnest? Yeah. Like, but I mean, it's definitely an experience that, most everybody's going to experience at some point, you know? And so it is sort of like a universal kind of, there are universal themes throughout. That I think like when you're listening to it more intently, like you kind of pick up on it, but like otherwise, my main critique of the sound of the band on this album in particular, and it's sort of just a taste thing, but some of the music comes across as so slick, so well crafted that it almost sounds like corporate kind of like training video background music. You know what I mean? Like there's something kind of light and burbly and just dig ding 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 ding, like it seems like the electronic element for my taste was a little bit too much. But I mean, it's a blend, like there's plenty of guitars, there's plenty of the stuff that I think old fans of Gang of Youths would like. I mean, but it also has a little bit of almost like theatricality to it. Yeah,
it is a very theatrical record. It is really theatrical, and I think that's one thing that's really uncomfortable about it sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
Because like if you get it wrong, if there's a moment where you get it wrong, it's just so embarrassing.
Yeah.
Whereas I think our generation can deal with real raw, earnest sentiment if the rapper is somehow dinged up. So either the the band is kind of shitty, or the singer's not real good, or like it's Elliott Smith and the singer's not shitty, or the musician's really good, but it's recorded kind of lo-fi and he does it all. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So
there's got to be some
Yeah,
There's
but
be
if
some
you
non-perfect. Yeah.
yeah, but if you do all of it, like Earnest and like execution at a high level, like high sheen, like it just all seems too much
Yeah.
somehow.
There is a sheen to this album that I think can be off-putting to Gen X indie ears.
Yeah.
But the more time I spent with it, I definitely, the more songs started to stick. I think it's a grower, not a shower.
It definitely was a grower for me. But I have to say that like once I started getting into the lyrics of the songs, it put like a hook in me that like very few other songs ever
Interesting.
like on earth do. Like I can like name some Underneath the Weeping Willow by Granddaddy, like, Independence Day by Elliott Smith. Yeah, I mean, like, there's like a set of them, right? And like, there's certain songs that you're just like, every time I hear this song, it just like,
I feel it hard. I feel it hard.
Yeah. Sadie by Joanna Newsom. Anyway, but there are some good there, but it's so over the top. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I was thinking and I've listened to it so many times and I'm so heavily bought into this album that like, I was trying to kind of think about things that I think like big questions that I could ask here. And I started listening to it and wondering, and I don't have an answer, but like, would this material be just as good if it was really just stripped down, like super stripped down, and like I've read some interviews with David LaPepe where he says that he likes the combination of like really sad lyrics with like really upbeat music. Mm-hmm. And he thinks that's like kind of really interesting. And this album is full of that. Right. But like I wonder if he just did downbeat music with these lyrics and melodies and stuff, what would that album be like?
Well, I mean, he's definitely he's a personality, like he's a performer, his stage presence and his voice. And like, I don't think he could do it any other way than how he does it, sort of like,
yeah.
So I think even stripped down, because there are a couple of tunes I guess there's like the piano ballad that's just like voice and piano. Yeah. There are moments in songs that are very stripped down, and he's a great singer, and and I think that's part of what holds the whole thing together. Is for me anyway, is that I think if I found his voice somehow off-putting or I don't know, like it might not hold in some way, but I think that he kind of nails it throughout. Yeah.
All right. Well, should we start getting into the track by track? Come on. All right. We got a lot of tracks to do. Okay. Mm-hmm. Side A. Yeah. Track 1 is called You and Everything. I should note here that all of the song titles and the album title appear all in lowercase. That is consistent across all of the places. So, do with that what you will.
Well, how do we feel about that? How do you feel about it?
I have mixed feelings. I mean, that's one of those things where, again, I have mixed feelings about it.
I do too.
I feel like it's kind of pretentious, but the album in its entirety, I mean, really, like, you need to set aside any feeling of cynicism or irony to approach this album. And I think for me, it ultimately delivers if you let it do it. I think it's incredibly rich and beautiful, but it is difficult because it's so pretentious somehow,
Yeah. I'm not a fan,
All right. Well, let's get into the music. You and Everything, right. 6 minutes, 52 seconds. Let's go.
But the cradle of the last days was an honor and a miserable fate. I still need you in everything.
Okay, J. William Hall, we've got to talk about the lyrics. We are going to be talking about the lyrics a lot on this record. Because I do think they're really, really wonderful, wonderful lyrics generally. And this song is no exception.
Yeah, this song is almost like an overture sort of for the entire album. It sort of like gives you the overarching, entryway lyrically into what we're about to explore.
Yeah, and it has the epic sweep that you would expect of that, like with the horns and woodwinds and everything like swelling.
Yes.
And it is really an overture, but it also is a very literal and, in my opinion, excruciatingly beautiful, literal recollection of the moment that his dad died. And it's really rough, but he's got lines like, then I kissed the hands that raised me for the last time and stared into the street. I mean, he really talks about being at his father's bedside, as he died, what he did, literally right after that, and what he was thinking. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, and I think for anybody who has lost a close loved one, I will feel you in everything. I will see you in everything. I will hear you in everything. Those are sort of universal emotions of love that hopefully everybody gets to feel at some point in their life. But so it's immediately the lyrics definitely hit. I did note probably the first thing that jumped out at me, of course, was the how do I face the world or raise a fucking kid? And I was like,
so that bothered you?
Well, and I don't know if it maybe
that's true of like Elliott Smith is as well, right? He's very well known, in particular in his earlier records, to really throw in the F-bombs, throw in the
I guess they're used to
swears.
It used to be some sort of showing your bona fides or something by dropping an F-bomb. It's like, fuck yeah, and I don't know, maybe it's aging. I don't know what it is, but at some point it crossed over to where I was just kind of like, all right,
okay,
you don't need it, and you alienate. It makes people feel bad. Some people.
Yeah, I think that is not the exception I would expect you to take to this album. There are a lot that I would expect, but that wasn't one of them.
We're backtracking. We're wandering off in different directions here.
I think another thing that you see in these lyrics in this first song that I got to call out is there are a lot of extremely specific personal references that you would not get if you just read through the lyrics. So he references Graceland, which is it's a suburb of Auckland, New Zealand, where his father used to live. So, and he does a lot of that, and he does an extra lot of that with sports, and in particular, kind of Australian, New Zealand sports. And we'll get to a whole bunch of that later on. But there are a couple of little spots in here that you really have to backtrack deeply to figure out what he means.
Yeah, especially for us dumb, geographically illiterate Americans. But now here's an exercise. Here's a thought exercise for you.
Yeah.
Could the Hillsong House Band perform this song as is and pass it off as being about Jesus?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah. There's no
lyrics.
doubt.
The lyrics. It's like they're specific, and I guess in the verses, and there are very specific references, but I think for the parts that really stick, they're universal, And that's a good trick to pull, for songwriters. I think you could still write about what you want to write about.
Totally true. It's totally true.
you make the sticky part the thing that sticks in people's ears or whatever.
Yeah, but
They
one of the
relate to.
things that I love about this record, and one of the things that kind of catches me and chokes me up frequently when I'm listening to it, are these lines like, all right, so he's in the third verse of the song. He's talking about, his dad being alive but in hospice. His dad was died from cancer, I think, before this record was recorded. And he's like, I prayed for you in song and kneaded through your veins and chased the morsels of your voice and gave you shots to ease the pain. When you asked us for some wine, we bought the best stuff and laughed and watched you drink. And that the wine scene is so it's terrible if you've ever been through that. But for anybody who's been through that, you can relate to that, where it's like, well, fuck it, might as well enjoy it now. And kind of like those brief moments of levity.
Yeah. Very poignant, very genuine, and so that really is kind of a thread for the album as a whole, is like, there's nothing lyrically about it that struck me as like false. I did.
Yeah.
Again, with the swear words, too many swears, but like, other than that, here's my argument as well.
Okay.
If you swear
Back
in
to
every
the swear.
song, if you swear in every song, it makes them less impactful.
Sure.
Save it. Cut them in half.
Yeah.
They'll hit with more punch. That's a little lesson for you there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, all right. So what about the music? We haven't even talked about it. So this album, is just not the kind of music that I would think that I would be able to get past, honestly. It is so orchestral, and the rhythms tend to be so upbeat and dancey that it's like, I don't really know what I'd compare it to, but it is like, this is one of the few songs on the albums where there are live drums, like traditional drum kit drums. And obviously that's something I always kind of think about. I just generally don't, for dumb reasons, but don't listen to a lot of music that doesn't have like traditional drum kit drums,
Yeah. 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 It's very produced. Like, it definitely, my first reaction was that it sounded like a corporate training video. Like when it first starts, it starts coming in, it's like, at Arthur Daniels Heartland,
I don't. No, you can't. It does not sound like. But it is very like
when it first
first
comes in, like, there's something about because it's the electronic element, I think, that gives it that, like, there are live drums, but like there's also electronics kind of woven in
a
there.
click track comes in at the end and they play together.
It's sort of like more keys and strings and and I'm just saying that was the vibe I got when the music started. I think his voice helps a lot because it adds gravity, to the proceedings. Whereas, the band does seem to be in a more like pop, radio friendly, more up tempo, very professional sounding, very slick sounding, but that doesn't mean the songs aren't good, or the performances are impeccable,
Yeah.
But is it too impeccable? Like, where's our grit? Where's our dirt?
Did it eventually? Did you eventually get past that element of it?
Yeah. Well, the thing that got me past it is the chorus really sticks with you.
Yeah.
It's a very catchy melody. I think his performance throughout the album is really strong, and it doesn't feel fakey. It
doesn't,
heartfelt and genuine in the ways that, Bono would connect with me when I was, young, impressionable.
But these are real, and these are catchy melodies across this record.
They are, and they're growers,
they really
I think
are.
Like, it took a few listens, but nothing stuck on the first listen, honestly.
It was the same for me. It took me a few. The thing that when I look back at it, I don't understand is why I stuck with the record. I couldn't tell you what the initial thing was that stuck with me, but it did. Yeah,
Well,
I don't know.
I get it.
All right, so you want to move on to the second track?
Yeah.
All right, in the wake of your leave, 4 minutes and 4 seconds. Let's go.
So as you canyoneered from our world upwards, and the angels took their place, I was the loser at your funeral, and no emotion conveyed. It was torn out in vain, and the idiot I am just figured in the wake of your leave, and I'd never hear from you again.
Okay, so we have now moved J. William Hall lyrically and in the narrative of this album, or, insofar as there is a narrative, we've moved forward in time a little bit. The first song is really kind of the moment that his father dies, like, and kind of the immediate moments around that. And now we're kind of in the period of time of like the funeral or memorial or something like that. And so I think in the wake of your leave, wake there is doing, a little bit of work, right? That's maybe a little double entendre. What do you think?
Oh, I think for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't uncover that. That was hiding in plain sight.
The thing about, these lyrics through a lot of this album is they're very literal. Like there's not a lot of like left to the imagine. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot of mystery, around like, what is he singing about or referring to? I mean, a couple of like very local references or whatever, but, I mean, he's doing it in a very poetic way, but it's, we're at the funeral.
Yeah. And so I think there's kind of this song introduces a second thread into the album that I think is pretty interesting. Okay. And you're going to have to like go with me on this journey. I think it's obvious. I don't think he's trying to hide that there's this second thread, but again, I think there's some borderline kind of like, concerns that you have to have with it. But the primary thread is in kind of setting here is he's at the funeral and he's beating himself up for not reacting in the way that he thought he should or would at the funeral, basically. And again, I think this is one of these things that anybody who's gone through this stuff like can really relate to. You know what I mean? You have this expectation of, whatever, how you're going to be and at any moment through this stuff.
Yeah. Grief hits you in unpredictable ways and makes you go up and down and all around, and you don't know why, you're feeling this way or whatever. And, so I think that is essentially, that's kind of the heart of this song. He's being pulled and thrown around by this.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think, but then we go into this second verse. Okay. And this is not directly about his father. I think that this is about a strain of dissatisfaction that he has with the state of the band and his own career going into this album. Like, yes. And that's pretty strong. And I think this is like, and he has this same tension in this song that I think he has elsewhere in the album, but it's a similar tension to like the funeral, right? There's this thing where it's like, wow, the band has gone so much further than I thought it would, but we're still not really all that big, and I'm not enjoying it that much, and you know what I mean? And and is that all there is? And I think this moment is like, well, here we are, famous and semi-famous or whatever, and I'm not enjoying it.
Yeah. He seems definitely, just in what I've read about him while backtracking this, that he has a complicated relationship with fame.
Yeah.
And they did go, so huge that I think he became more of like, a celebrity, in a lot of places, and that changes your relationship with the world around you and messes with your head. So I've read.
Yeah. I mean, it's very Adam Duritz-y again, right? Like, I think there's this like, you kind of read about how difficult, how big Counting Crows got. I don't know if you've ever like watched any of these documentaries or anything. There was recently a very good Counting Crows documentary I recommend.
Oh, I lived it. I lived the Counting Crows rise and fall.
Okay,
I was there, man.
Yeah, so like you kind of remember that after the first album, August and Everything After, it became like they were totally unknown. And then that became the biggest album on fucking Earth. It was everywhere.
Yeah,
and then,
they were huge for like a 2-year period, maybe.
Yeah, and he, before their second album, he kind of like lost his shit a little bit, and left San Francisco for Los Angeles and moved to Los Angeles and kind of famously became a bartender at the Viper Room for a year. Or for some period of time. But it's like, I get that, but at the same time, it's like, I'm sure it's hard to be a big celebrity like that right away. But then you go and date, Courtney Cox and Jennifer Aniston off of Friends. That's not exactly, kind of hiding from the cameras. And at the same time, this guy has like Daniel Ricciardo playing drums on his album. It's like, I get it, but there's a similar strain of, I don't know what you'd call that.
It's got to be this complicated thing, because it's like there are some aspects of it you love and there are some aspects of it you hate, and that are a total invasion of privacy or just whatever, and so I think particularly if you were somebody who was never particularly seeking that, say you were more of a rebellious type or anti-authority or anything like that, and then suddenly you're in the machine, and you're a cog in the machine, and you're a unit, and all of these people now rely on you for their livelihoods, and like, just I think the pressure, just begins to build, and when you have people who are young thrust into that, like who aren't even mature enough to understand what's happening or whatever, like, or so I think it makes sense, when some of these guys or ladies, have like a crisis of conscience, when they sense that suddenly they're more famous than they are comfortable with, and they just want to drop out,
Yeah. So now if our band from college,
right, the Flatbeds
had made the Flatbeds had we were on the launch pad.
We were on our way. I mean, it was like we were aiming. Yeah.
But if we had become suddenly overnight, we recorded all those songs and they just became the biggest songs ever, how would you have reacted, do you think?
Oh, I think I would have handled it beautifully. I probably would have been a textbook. No, of course not.
No, I actually was. I was like, well, probably if anybody was going to handle it, it would have been you.
It's unpredictable. You cannot know. You can't know.
You would have handled it better than anybody else. There's no doubt about that.
I don't know about that.
Oh, come on. Come on.
It's unpredictable.
No, I think you would have probably been okay. I think
I know that.
I think B-Rock would have been dead within 12 months.
What's that?
B-Rock.
Oh, B-Rock LeBrock Rock was like, oh, I WOD, Yeah. Yeah. Shouldn't laugh at that, but
that's funny.
That was an alternate future that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, that's right. Well, anyway, I think that like it starts to give you a sense of how he's progressing, kind of like from a narrative through this album. So the music, this is really kind of for me the first moment where I realized how influenced by kind of 80s music that they are, and in a similar way to like the Killers, for example. You know what I mean? Like there's that strain that I think is really, it's not upfront all the time in all of the songs on this album, but you find it from here, here and there.
That Killers reference is a good one because they impact me kind of in the same way, or they hit me a little bit
really?
in the same way, where there's something about their sound that reminds me of like an Old Navy commercial. And then, but there's something that's like really catchy about it that,
Yeah.
And when you're like, well, it's, it's guitars and bass and drums, like it's a rock band, right? Isn't it?
I see.
Like
it's so
there's
funny. I would have
like
thought that you would go in for the Killers.
I
mean,
like
because you
them fine.
like
I like
all
them
of the
fine.
bands that they're influenced by. Like,
Well, that's just it.
You
but
know what
there's
I mean?
something-
Like the Smiths and Echo and the Bunnymen and Duran Duran.
there's like a sheen. There's something. I mean, and that I know that sounds dumb. Like
Yeah.
but
You don't. There's.
it's-
I can't think of a band that you like that has a sheen.
no. I like
Other
some
than
sheen
you
bands.
two. Other
Hey,
than you two.
You said Duran Duran. I had some Duran Duran albums back in the
Yeah,
day.
no, Duran Duran.
Yeah.
I almost put seven and the Ragged Tiger on this list.
Oh, I would be all over that episode.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, but I think there's a similar family tree there, and you hear it on
Yeah.
this song. The 30-second notes on that hi-hat really are like immediately evocative for me of that
Yeah.
kind of vibe.
The other vibe I got off of this was like that sort of that same like early 2000s, first decade, the noughties of the 2000s. That's the Killers and like Arcade Fire and just sort of that strand of indie that was more like up tempo and
Yeah.
and big.
It was like arena rock ready indie.
Yeah, but it's also like bouncy. It's got like a
Yeah.
quirky kind of bounce to it that
Yeah.
is just
Yeah.
irresistible. And this song has a little bit of that feel to it.
Yeah.
but not. It's not. It's at the tipping point. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't quite tip over into like
Yeah.
At least it didn't for me. But when that opening keyboard, the doo doo doo, I was like,
No, totally.
I was like, is this an Old Navy commercial? Like, I wasn't sure, and
But those, I mean, the singing and then the lyrics
Yeah.
on top of it, it really kind of like has a depth that I never found from any of those other bands. Maybe it's there, but it just, I don't know. I never went deep enough to really find it.
we haven't backtracked those bands yet.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, all right. So are you ready to move on then to the third track?
Yes.
All right. Third track is The Angel of 8th Avenue. It is a brisk 3:43. Let's go.
When my old man was near the end, you rubbed his broken body the same way that I did. I won't let me down and be a lover of the year in this strange new town, the strange hemisphere.
Okay, J. William Hall. This is, him singing about his second wife.
Yes.
Okay? And kind of how much he loves her at this moment and how her kind of behavior relative to him during this time of dealing with his father's death was really great. It's a very sweet love song, but it's pretty specific again, I think. I mean, there's a line in here, the greatest thing that Laney ever made. And I was like, who is Laney? And I looked it up, and actually I just looked this up on Genius. Someone had notated it. But his wife went to high school in North Carolina at Laney High School, which is the same high school that Michael Jordan went to.
Oh.
So, I mean, but not exactly a terribly generic lyric to include.
Right. But, I think he does sing in such a way that it the exact word for word.
You don't get hung up on it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the main thing is the chorus. I want to lay me down and be lover of the year, strange new town,
What a
those
great
are more-
line, strange new town, strange hemisphere. That's such a great epic U2 style line, but it literally is correct because he had just moved to London from Sydney.
Right. I'm not sure if this one is I thought one of them was a New York song. Didn't he meet her in New York, maybe?
Oh, maybe it would have been New York, but
I don't know. He's moved around.
The point stands. It's a different hemisphere than Australia.
Yeah, and then the big epic outro, there's Heaven in You Now, which is a very nice sentiment unto itself. but with the, religious DNA that we have identified, like it's like it adds kind of a meaning there as well, and so I think, but you can take it any way you want to take it.
Yeah, no, I think I think that's right. I think that's right. I mean, but he does stick with the one thing I wanted to kind of like call out here is that even though kind of overall this is mostly just a lovely love song about his wife, like there is these few lines where he said, God, it was state of the art. You called each of my sorrows by name, and a tide of tender mercy shook my body from the grave. Anyway, like I feel like it fits within the kind of narrative of the album.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he portrays her as an angel, as a savior, somebody who's helped him through his grieving process, when he's been at his lowest, it's a great love song. It
is. All right. So let's get to the music, because there are some things in here that really take it like, past 11. Like this one really is, I think, big and single ready. The first thing that struck me is like the claps, right at the beginning, it does that clapping thing. And you're just like, whoa, that is not something that, is easy to get away with.
Well, the thing that there's an element of in their DNA as well, which is sort of like an Arcade Fire era.
Yeah.
It was like, the bands that had 11 people.
Yep.
And
home, we're going home.
Yeah,
home.
and the exotic percussion or whatever, like, there was something in the air that
there was.
That.
You're right.
And so somehow those hand claps kind of reminded me a little bit of that.
Okay,
I'm not saying in like a terrible way or whatever, but just as like another kind of thing that I was like, I'm not sure how I feel, but
I mean, it is a big production choice. And then they have that acoustic guitar like strum in those verses, and that is like
it's
big,
like, what it reminded me of? The Cult.
What?
She Sells Sanctuary. that like there's like a very prominent acoustic chug that just comes in to like punctuate every line or whatever. And it was kind of like that.
Yeah,
which I liked, like that, so it was like, if you're keeping track of like, which elements of this song do I like and not like, it was like neck and neck,
Yeah, I mean, it is even the production on this, which this was the single, I believe, the first single, and it is definitely an obvious choice for that, because I think for one reason is it's the least dissonant in its lyrics and musical feel. This is a happy song with happy lyrics, and I think it's the last of those. The rest of the upbeat songs on the album are really, I think, pretty dark lyrics. So I don't know. I mean, this one is just kind of, I think, the obvious choice, and it really sounds like it's very slick.
Yeah. This is coming right off, somebody's blaring it out their car radio.
Yeah. All right. So you want to move on?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So next song is called Returner. It is 4 minutes and 43 seconds. Let's go.
I'm only in it for the money. I'm only in it for the change. I'm not in it for the glory. I'm not in it for the friends with the form of the fame. The innocence died in waves of quiet things. Nothing feels right or quite the same. It's great at the start, but in the end, in the heart, it's a job and a choice that I made.
Okay, I am going to get into the lyrics of this one. This song was, on my initial listens, the most polarizing song for me. This was the song that I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. Like, why did they put this on the record? This doesn't make any sense on this record.
Yeah.
And it took me a really long time to wrap my head around it. And now it's one of my favorite songs on the record. It's like all right, so when you've got a parent, like you kind of like, especially in your early 20s, 30s, you'll talk to them. And if you've got a good relationship, maybe you'll kind of just like tell them what you're going through, right? And in this one, it really is just kind of a letter to his dad about him having decided to become a musician and make the band his career. And he kind of is talking about how, you know, he did that and he's not really enjoying it right now, but he had, because he's like on this path, he's got to do it. He's got to make money from the band. And he has like, it's these really conflicted feelings throughout here, but it's wrapped in this musical thing that's like very strange, you know, with that kind of chant of we're only in it for the money, you know. It just feels totally weird, and it takes, I think, going deep into the lyrics to like get that. But it was a hard journey for me.
Yeah, I think it is one of the more off-putting songs initially, just on first blush. It does have a whole backstory to it, and it makes sense in the context of the album. Another band that I was trying to conjure, Broken Social Scene.
Okay.
They were from that early 2000s. That was kind of their heyday as well. And they had that like large group, you know, chanting things vibe to them. I don't know if that's an accurate.
Yeah.
I doubt, you know, for our Broken Social Scene fans out there, like you're going to, you know, not be happy with that assessment. But I feel like he says, I found an interview with him where he talks about he's friends with the guy from Broken Social Scene, and they like had conversations, you know, in-depth conversations about the music business and their experiences and stuff. And so that was also part of the inspiration for the song, but his dad as well, who was like his kind of sounding board.
Yeah. But I think that when you get to the end, at least in my reading of these lyrics, when you get to the end, he goes through this, like, you know, pretty, I don't know, deep, like, dissatisfaction with being in a band and the and like the music industry, and it's like, you know, pretty heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the thing that I love about this song is how at the end of the song, he does this sixth verse that he says, "When I was bright and young and full of shit, I was happy in the midst of it. Anyway, I'll tell the guys you said hello." And it really is like, this was just like this message I was leaving for my dad, venting about how work was going. And when you think about it that way, it's like, man, that's really, you know, being able to do that is something that you do. And then when your parent dies, it's like, you know, it's a very small thing, but like, how do you know, there's no place to go for that.
They're not replaceable in that way. Like there's only, you know, if you're lucky, you know, you get one parent that can be your sort of like sounding board, or you can dump your problems and you can still kind of, you know, lean on them in a way that you have your whole life. Yeah. You know, and when they're gone, there's nobody, you know, you can't replace them in that way, you know? Yeah. So,
and so like I kind of like that line was really what let me into the song, because it just musically they kind of take everything down, and he just kind of like very plainly sings that at the end, and I was kind of like, oh, like, all right, like I better go back and reread these again, because it's not some kind of punk rock, you know, anthem of fuck, you know, that kind of thing, right? Like it's different. Anyway, I'm a fan.
I think it's a sign of you know, his maturing perspective as well. Like, you know, I'm sure a very different song would have come out on the first album, you know, like just from where he was writing from, you know. Yeah.
Okay, are we ready to move on to the next track on this side?
Let's do it.
It is Unison. It is 5 minutes and 9 seconds. Let's go.
But I am full to the head with unsayable things that I don't want to forget. And it takes, and it takes, and it moves, and it makes us of one mind.
All right, Jay William, what do you think about these lyrics?
Again, kind of, they're clearly telling a story. Like he's basically on all of the songs. It's like they are like a little bit diary entry, like he's clearly talking to a specific person. And I'm pretty sure it's his second wife.
Yep.
And I found an interview where he talks a little bit about the background of the song, and he said it sort of started to take shape. They went on a trip. I think on the trip where he was going to discover, stuff about his dad that he didn't know.
Yeah.
They were in Samoa.
Yeah, in Samoa, and he references a resort in Samoa called Sinalei.
Yeah, and they were swimming or boating or something with sea turtles. And he had a moment of just like, because of his ethnic background, like my ancestors, were doing the same thing that I'm doing right now, and just like had a moment of like, feeling connected to everything, and that's kind of the genesis of this lyric, is my understanding.
Yeah. All right. So I think this is one of the least heavy lyrics on the album. It's another love song about that wife. This one is more like, when I get to heaven, am I going to see you? Like, that kind of thing. But I really like the music here. This is like, there's a mid-tempo airiness. It's a little less frenetic, and it was really needed after the first 4 tracks, in my opinion.
I would agree with that. I think, and I don't even know if it's like, it's not their fault. I feel like it's a modern production style thing that is like a relentless assault of, I think, the mastering and everything has gotten so like, so, maybe some of that is in there, but I think just with all the bloops and the bleeps, like mixed in with live drums, mixed in with percussion, mixed in with, keyboards and whatever, it's, they needed to exhale, and this song feels that way.
Yeah, it feels, but they do not lose any of like the memorability of and the hookiness of these melodies, like like the chorus on this, and it takes and it takes and it moves and it makes us, is like, so catchy.
Yeah, that is probably the first actual like chorus that lodged in my head.
Yeah, but he is
as I was marching into my cubicle for the 5th day in a row. It takes and it takes, and every move that I make, they're watching.
All right, so all right, are we ready to move on to this, the final track on side A? It is Tend the Garden, 4 minutes and 27 seconds. Let's go.
There were things we did and should not have done. Been half a century since us and my sons. Lord knows if they would ever forgive me. I won't forgive myself, at least. There are strange forces in the air that time can unleash. In a way I still believe.
Okay, J. William Hall, I want to, in this one, I actually think the lyrics are kind of the lead. There's a lot to talk about in the music here. But the lyrics, he's switched over and he's telling a story from his father's perspective now. Mm-hmm. And he's basically telling the story of the fact that his dad had 2 kids that he abandoned, essentially, and then moved to Australia or New Zealand, and kind of started a totally new life.
Yeah, so I mean that's the complicated backstory that sets this, stage for, this singer's particular tale. It's not just, oh, I
Yeah.
lost my father, but it's that his father had another family prior to the one that he thought was the only family.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't even know if it's that he had another family, but he fathered 2 other children.
Yeah.
In Samoa, and then he left and went to New Zealand and then eventually Australia, and the family thought that he had died.
Yeah.
And he allowed that to, he allowed them to just believe that.
Yeah.
And so he never told, David LePepe or his sister, about these other children.
Yeah.
And then on his deathbed, he gave some kind of clues or something that there was other, something that led him to kind of take a trip to Samoa, and then he finds his half siblings.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and,
he,
sort of like meets them and like, has a relationship with them now.
Yeah, well, he kind of describes their status in a song on side B called Brothers. But yeah, it's a pretty amazing story. And so there's this thing that I think really from here through the rest of the album, and you can hear it in some of the beginning of the album as well, that you realize there's like he David LaPepe is like struggling with this. How do I kind of like reconcile the dad that I knew with knowing this truth? Should I hate him? Should I,
Right.
you know what I mean? Why didn't he tell me? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So there's this whole conflicted set of things that he's dealing with that he didn't learn about until he was grieving for, his father's passing. So that really becomes kind of a big tension for the rest of the record.
Yeah, it's like on the one hand, he loves his dad. Like he was a great father to him in many ways, and he outlines those as well. But the story is complicated. Like, he's not a hero. He has this secret past that is not glorious at all.
Yeah. So it really is a pretty literal telling of the whole thing. But I want to talk about the music, because the music here really, it's a very distinct vibe. It has the only way that I could describe it's a kind of a Marvin Gaye vibe, and I think intentionally a Marvin Gaye vibe.
Yeah, it definitely has like a 70s disco adjacent kind of feel, but there is a contemporary Australian band that I think it reminded me of, which is Tame Impala.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Who have a more like dance floor-y kind of pulse to, a lot of their music. And I felt like the keyboard, the main keyboard riff that you kind of hear right at the beginning of this felt like a Tame Impala sound. But definitely. But that in turn influenced by 70s greats like Marvin Gaye and,
Yeah. I mean, for me, this kind of a song is very hard to get past aesthetically. This is not my aesthetic vibe at all. And when I heard it, I was just, like, there were just so many in my initial listens of this record. Like the first thing was I couldn't figure out what it was that I liked about it. And then the second thing was, as I started to like some things about it, I would be like, why did they put that song in? Like, that is just a miss. You know what I mean? And I was like, maybe what they need is to edit down. But then I kind of like, I don't know, I just stuck with it, and I get it.
It's got a groove. You can dance to it. And it's coming on the heels of, a more mellow, somber song, and so it sort of kicks the energy back up.
But now there is a question I'm going to ask. So I said this reminded me of Marvin Gaye, and there's a section in this song where it's just like the groove, kind of the congas continue, and maybe something else, but it's just kind of like boom. It's just a little break, and you hear almost like a party atmosphere, like the sound of people talking at a party.
Yeah,
I felt like that was a direct homage to that version of What's Going On that like is the famous version. The Marvin Gaye song.
You're talking about the song that got ripped off, or they sued Blurred Lines because it was
I don't know.
They had that party kind of chatter going on.
I never heard about that. I never heard about that.
That was a big music story from 20 years ago now.
Oh, really?
But yeah, there was like a lawsuit, like Marvin Gaye estate or whatever, like went after the Blurred Line, and they won because like it was basically like a sound.
Oh, I do kind of remember that.
It was more than an homage. It felt a little like it was more of a ripoff. But this is just an element, and I don't know, because there's also the thing in here where there's a recording, I believe, of one of the singer's brothers talking about their dad.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he says he had his reasons to leave the islands, and basically it's kind of like a little snippet of what sounds like a forgiveness kind of message, the garden of the title, that is literally his dad. His dad was a big gardener. He had backyard garden that was really well, he fussed over. So, that's kind of what he's
that's the scene he's setting. So I had this whole conspiracy theory where I was like, okay, he referenced Marvin Gaye because Marvin Gaye obviously was shot by his dad and they had a weird relationship. But I think that was like I was backtracking. I had backtracked too far. I hit like the Earth's mantle.
Yeah, you can go too far.
So I'm gonna disavow that. I mentioned it, but I'm gonna disavow it.
You can backtrack so far that you wind up coming back around the other way.
I know. All right, J. William Hall, that's it. We are done with side A of this album. I can't believe it either. I feel like this album kind of left you winded.
Well, this is three things.
Yeah, three things. Okay.
Jumping to my mind.
Okay.
One is, this is not a short album. This is a long album.
It's a long album.
There are a lot of tracks, and they're long tracks. Some of them 4 or 5 minutes. B, I completely unfamiliar, completely cold on this band, on any of their songs, on their history. That requires a lot of brain power.
Sure.
A lot of brain power.
Sure.
I am of an age. We've already told you my generation.
Yeah.
I am of an age where my brain cells are not increasing.
They're at a premium.
They are not only not at a premium anymore, they're unwanted, and they're fleeing as quickly as they can jump off of the ship.
Yeah.
So, so yes, in that way, it's a little, it's a lot. I'm not going to say it's exhausting because it's enjoyable.
So you made it through, but one side in,
right?
The jury is out whether this will become a real discovery for you, an album that you're going to come back to time and again and say, wow, I discovered a classic there.
The jury is out, but we will find out when we do side A.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so until then, there's only one thing that you have to do. It has many steps, but it's just a single thing. Number one, you've got to go to Instagram. You got to follow us. We're at Backtracking Rocks ROX. We post once a week, so we're not gonna overload you with content.
We're not filling up your algorithms.
No. Step two, everybody. Go to X and follow us. It's Backtracking Rocks ROX. Step 3, go to the YouTube.
I'm not getting on board with fucking X. No.
All right, well, J. William Hall is mad about that. But
that's my generation's name. You can't have
it. So then you go to the YouTube. You go to our YouTube channel, guys, and it's Backtracking Rocks, YouTube/Backtracking Rocks ROX. But then finally, this is step 4, send an email, backtrackingrocksrox@gmail.com. Ask us a question, tell us what we got wrong, suggest a band that we might like, just share a nugget, do any of the things that you need to do. Finally, step 6 and step 7, like the podcast, rate it like 4 stars or whatever, and then share the final step, step 7. It's a simple 7-step task.
There is an optional 8th step.
Okay, yeah, what is it?
You can visit the online storefront of your choice and spend some of your hard-earned cash on a band or artist that you admire, but that you've just been streaming and getting all of it for free, and all the money's going to the Spotify execs. Hey,
why don't
you need to pay the band directly. Bandcamp is a great option.
Yeah.
There are probably others, but that's my message to you, dear listener.
Yeah, but if somebody sends a Venmo and they're like, I'm David LaPepe, I heard Backtracking last week, so I just decided to reach out to you and so you could just pay me directly, here's my Venmo. Don't send them, but just double check it. Just don't send it right away. Double check.
Hey, you measure twice, you cut once. That's how the old saying goes.
That's what you do. I mean, that's what you should do.
If you're doing it the right way.
That's right. That's right, you son of a bitch. All right, so there it is. Jay William, I will see you next week. Thank you for going on an amazing journey with me. Bye-bye.
So the good old-fashioned backtracking. Backtracking is the greatest podcast. Ralph and JW and Dan make this podcast every week. Backtracking is the greatest podcast. Get ready for podcast action.